Now, as a multi-billion-dollar company, you would expect LEGO to have a fairly good security system, when in reality, they very much don't. Now, this is not me bashing LEGO by all means, because some of these things are just simply out of their own hands, aka, don't hate me LEGO, give me free stuff. But at the same time, you have to have some sort of concern when one of their biggest original IPs is constantly getting leaked like it does. Because this is by no means a recent issue that has just happened in Dragon's Rising. The problem with Ninjago is the fact that it has been leaking basically since before time had a name. And honestly, there are so many examples of this, some of them are a lot more documented than others, but the reality is that Ninjago has had a constant issue with leaking, and I just want to go over it for today. The thing is that we seem to have a constant stream of LEGO Ninjago media, or their promotional media, or the sets in general actually getting leaked in some way, shape or form, and there's always somehow a different reason for this to have occurred. And honestly, the fact that there's no consistent answer to how the leak is happening is honestly more baffling to me. And remember, I find this more baffling as a Transformers fan, where every single week it seems to be that we get a new leak for a new Transformer figure. I mean, it doesn't go a certain day where we don't have the next FBI Transformers fan releasing the next year or two worth of Transformers figures. Ninjago is more baffling to me than that, because with Transformers, at least there seems to be a consistent way on how they get the information, whereas with Ninjago, it seems to be always something new. The show leaks are definitely the most infamous ones because it's the single piece of media that every Ninjago fan does consume. Of course, everything else is almost optional when it comes to the fans, but if you are a fan of Ninjago, you are definitely watching the show and you definitely are aware of some of the leaks that occur. Whilst the more earlier instances of Ninjago leaks actually aren't as well documented, I can tell you for a fact that it's very common for us to have gotten Ninjago leaks back in the day. There have been so many that we used to get, but they were honestly never as bad as what we got now. I distinctly remember back in 2017 when we got the Hands of Time episodes a little early and in a different language as well, and my main experience of the 7th season of Ninjago was watching it in French, and I do find that really funny in retrospect, but the reality was I was just straight up spoiling a Ninjago season for myself when I didn't even know what the audio was, and it led into this whole idea of people translating these episodes so people knew what was actually being said, and then the dialogue always ended up being completely wrong anyways. So even though we've never had anything like that in the modern day, I would honestly argue that the modern day is worse. I mean, take Ninjago Dragon's Rising. I feel like it goes without saying that it's had a very big issue, and I'm not the first person to bash the problems that we have been having when it comes to Dragon's Rising. But the fact is that we have had 3 seasons of Dragon's Rising over the last few years, and every single part 2 leaked in some way, shape or form. It seemed to be that every single time that we got the first part of a season, it just ended up that the second part was going to be leaked in some way. And honestly, initially speaking, and in retrospect, the first season part 2 getting leaked was not honestly too bad. And I mean, the second part was honestly a little worse, but I don't think any of them paled in comparison to the season 3 part 2 leaks. Because even though it was funny that the first and the second season's part 2 leaked maybe like a couple months later, or not so long before the second part was meant to officially release, it will never even ever pale in comparison to the fact that season 3 part 2, which is still not out officially as of the time of this video may I add, it got leaked a week after season 3 part 1. That is beyond crazy to me, and at least to this day we never got the final 2 episodes, but the fact that we still got near enough the entire season full HD in English is so beyond me, it was unbelievable. I distinctly remember waking up that day and seeing all of those episodes just on the internet, and the fact that it was just so easily happened, and we weren't even off of season 3 part 1, it was just so annoying as someone who makes content. The fact that I had to scrap so many videos because it completely ruined every other video that I was going to make, it was just annoying at best. And I mean, there's a reason why so many Ninjago content creators have barely talked about season 3 part 1. But enough ragging on the Dragon's Rising situation, I will bring up another fairly infamous leak that is still from recent time, but still honestly quite bad in comparison. I mean, it's nowhere near this, but it was still quite bad. So, the Crystallized leaks was a very interesting time to be a Ninjago fan. Crystallized felt like LEGO's attempt to demo almost the parted release that we now have in Dragon's Rising, and it's very clear that it doesn't work, because the first 12 episodes of the season was released May 20th into the US YouTube page, which is fine, I guess, but the thing is then we have to wait from May over till September to get the rest of the episodes. The problem with that is that during that time, the episodes did get leaked. The episodes in particular that did get leaked was actually A Sinister Shadow, which is basically just the Harumi reveal, a whole backstory and everything that came along with it, along with the reveal of Oni Lloyd. This episode got leaked very early on into Asia, I believe, and we had to again translate the episode in similar vein to Hands of Time. But we had the entire thing of Harumi get completely dropped on us without us even getting the time to fully appreciate it, or hate it depending on how you felt about it. But again, it just shows how when these gaps occur when it comes to these seasons, for some reason it's just the episodes do get leaked. And like I said, I don't want to go back to it for too long, but Dragon's Rising Season 3 does prove a certain point, being that for some reason when the first part of a season in Dragon's Rising in particular gets released, the second part is done. But LEGO seemingly hands off those finished episodes to these companies and they just randomly decide to release them, whether it's by mistake or whether it's by actual intention. Who actually knows what the answer to that question is, but the fact is that LEGO are given these episodes months in advance and then they're wondering how they're actually getting leaked. It's a very clear solution. Don't release episodes even early to companies before they actually have to put them on their streaming services. I mean, it goes without saying that of course they want to give them enough time to make sure it's all up there and ready, but at the same time, when you're giving a streaming service access to a whole season worth of episodes like 6 months in advance, it makes no sense for that to even be the case. But yet still they do it, and that is how all these leaks seemingly do occur. But if we're going to stray away from the show when it comes to Ninjago leaks, we can then actually talk about promotional media. Of course, we've had a fair few instances where it has actually occurred, but there are 3 notable mentions that I do think are quite funny to say the least. The first one being, and I don't actually have evidence of this, but I was there for the time, and I can promise you that this is how I found out, that Ninjago magazines has seemingly a very bad habit of actually giving us Ninjago details when we've not really meant to have them yet. And the main example, in similar vein to what I was talking about with the show, is actually Hands of Time. The problem that we had at the time is that the Ninjago magazine loosely tied in with the show itself and also did give us information just based off of random things that the producers actually know. But the thing is that this is how I found out that Crux was actually a villain. The problem with these magazines is that they are given material of the show itself so they can make their own magazines, and then in cases like this they just release information that we are not meant to know. Crux being a villain is not the only example of this. It has happened many times, to the point where it's still basically happening in real time. I mean, it's been passively confirmed that it's not the case, but recently a Ninjago magazine release stating that Skylar was actually Kai's ex-boyfriend. So if that suddenly comes up then in the show itself, or Kai randomly mentions that he's single, it means that the magazine actually did leak this. But it's just a case of over the years us getting multiple instances of Ninjago magazines actually giving us information ahead of time, and it does spoil certain reveals. Like I said, the Crux reveal was honestly a shame to see because it would have been cool to actually see it play out in the show itself. But anyways, a piece of paper spoiled it. The other fairly infamous case to me, also being from 2017, was actually the case of the Ninjago movie. I mean, the movie did get a handful of leaks anyway, but this was always the most infamous for me because it was the most funny to see people's reactions, because people were clawing to know more details when it came to the Ninjago movie, and then the poster got leaked. This was the poster that showed all the ninja together in front of Ninjago City with Garmadon in the background. Honestly, it's a really nice poster and I think it's really cool, but remember, this was a lot of people's first seeings of the new designs of the ninja, and remember, the designs are still controversial to this very day, so you can imagine the reaction people had to seeing this poster. But like I said, that poster gave us so much information that we didn't already know, because at the time, we didn't really know the ninjas' designs, we didn't know what they were going to be doing, and there was a lot of debate on what the movie was actually going to cover. So this was a very telling moment, and was also a very distinct moment when it came to people realizing that the ninja were going to be changed in this instance. But luckily, apart from the magazines, we don't really get leaks like this anymore when it comes to promotional media. They seem to be fairly wound in nowadays, which is quite nice. I just wish it would be the case for the show. But ultimately speaking, the promotional media leaks were quite funny and quite ironic at the exact same time, because they would show us stuff that would honestly just make things worse for the community itself. But the final instance of leaks I want to talk about, because it's possibly the most common of the bunch, even more common than the show. The fact is that Ninjago sets and minifigures get leaked all the time. It seems to be that we know so much about Ninjago sets way before we're meant to, for seemingly no reason. It becomes so common for us to actually get a Ninjago minifigure print or a new design in any way, shape or form way before we're actually meant to see it. And it gives us a telling on what the new minifigures are going to look like, the new sets are going to look like. It gives us so much, and honestly, it's quite bad to actually see. The thing is, I could pull an example from basically any wave that we've ever gotten. It seems to be that every single wave does get leaked. I mean, this is how we found out that Cinder was the Master of Smoke in Dragon's Rising. This is how we found out a lot of the Legacy sets. It's the reason we know that the Legacy Bounty was meant to come with Garmadon and the Mega Weapon, because it got leaked. But at the same time, it just seems to be that there's no stopping when it comes to it. Of course, I can't show most of these leaks because LEGO still is quite funny when it comes to leaked images that are not meant to be out there officially. That is why I'm not showing the bounty with the Garmadon minifigure in it, but it is on the wiki if you do want to see it. But you will find that just so many sets and so many minifigures get leaked for no seeming reason, and we also get to see finalized versions of these sets, such as the crystallized Cape Lloyd. It is just crazy to think that so many sets and so many minifigures can get leaked. I mean, I don't remember the last time I actually saw a Ninjago minifigure released that I never actually saw before in a leak itself. Honestly, it's just quite scary to actually see, especially because most of these products are actually made in-house, so the fact that they get leaked implies that someone is either stealing them, or there's someone in LEGO who's actually just printing these and just showing it off for fun. But ultimately speaking, I do understand that this is something that a lot of people do like, because it gives people an impression on what we're actually going to get in the future, but at the same time, it just would be nice if we got to see it all officially. And I'm going to be honest, I don't even mention the fact that we always get a list of all the sets that we are going to get. I mean, the most recent example, we've gotten a full list of the 2026 Ninjago sets. Again, I can't show that list because LEGO will banish me, and I want to stay on their good side, but we always seem to get a full descriptive list on what we're going to be getting the next year for Ninjago, and it leads to a lot of people commenting on, will this work with this amount of brick pieces? Well, why is there not many minifigures in this set? There's a lot of minifigures in the other set. It just leads to a lot of debate on things that we haven't even seen and are probably not even finalized. But at the same time, people like to see it, I guess, but it's just the fact that it gets leaked every single time. But those are like the major instances of leaks that I wanted to talk about in this video. It's just weird to show that all these times when Ninjago has gone leaked, it just feels like it's been a while since we've had a season actually released with its set in a proper version where we were meant to get it as we were meant to see it. But at the same time, it just seems to be that will never happen because the state that Ninjago seemingly is in when it comes to it. And like I said, I didn't even mention everything. I didn't mention how we always seem to get how many lines people have in Dragon's Rising. We seem to get told who's going to be in what episode in every episode of Dragon's Rising. It is just so distracting and honestly just sad to see. But what is your favourite Ninjago leak? Is there any particular instance that stands out to you? Is there any moment in particular that really stuck in your head? I would love to know what you think of all these Ninjago leaks. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Do you wish we never got a leak? Or are you happy that you actually know what you're getting yourself into when it comes to the show? I would love to hear what you have to say about it. But that is about it for today, you guys. Thank you very much for watching and take care. Okay, bye.